So you've already heard about all the series that I finished, that I'm up to date on, and that I've DNF'd so far this year, but today we're going to be talking about the 12 series that I would love to wrap up or catch up on by the end of 2026. So if you've missed the first part of my mid-year series check-in, I will link that down below for you guys so that you can catch up. That video talks about all that I've accomplished so far this year. This video is talking about everything that I have left. So series that I have either started or made progress on this year that I either have not finished or have not read all of the published books available to me. Now, interestingly, this year I have a handful of series that at the midpoint of the year I am currently up to date on. They have no more books currently published. However, by the end of the year they will have received new installments, so by the end of the year I'm going to be behind. So I've decided to include those books here instead of in part one, because very soon they're going to roll around to being in progress once again. I have split this video into two sections as well. So we have all of the finished series that I'm in the middle of. So these are completed in their entirety. I'm just behind. And then we have the series that are still publishing. So by the end of the year, they will not be completed series, but they will have books that have been released that I haven't currently gotten to. So getting straight into those finished series that I'm in the middle of, this year I started the Housemaid series by Freida McFadden. I really enjoy Freida McFadden because I find her books so compelling that I just eat them up so quickly. This was my second Freida McFadden book. I read The Boyfriend last year and I loved it. And I know that The Housemaid is like Freida McFadden's most popular series. And I also wanted to watch the movie adaptation that was released earlier this year. So I read the first book, which I'm pretty sure is regarded as being the best one in the series. This one follows a young woman who is fresh out of prison. She's been in there for the last decade and we have no idea why, but she applies for this job that she does not think she has any hope of getting as a housemaid for a rich family, or a family that are significantly more well off than she is anyway. So everything seems fine when she goes to her interview. She expects to never hear from this woman again because as soon as they do a background check, they'll realize that she's only recently been released. And lo and behold, she is invited to be the housemaid for this family. And as soon as she starts, the lady of the household starts behaving very, very erratically and out of character from how she was behaving in her interview, as well as being incredibly volatile. So the main character needs to keep this job as a condition of her parole. So she kind of just like goes with it. But the situation with this woman escalates throughout the course of the book. And she feels so sorry for this woman's husband, who is incredibly kind, incredibly patient, and you know, he puts up with a lot from his wife. This one is a thriller, so I won't go any more into it than that, but I really enjoyed this one. I did like The Boyfriend slightly more, but the thing that I like about what I've read from Freida McFadden is that her books go exactly the way that you expect them to based on the synopses. When I read a thriller synopsis, I tend to go in with a set of assumptions about how it's going to play out, but I'm also expecting the author to surprise me. With Freida McFadden, I feel like she really takes it in the direction that you expect it to go until the 11th hour. I feel like the plot twist was dampened a little bit for me in this one because I already expected that from her, but I do still find it to be incredibly enjoyable and compelling. At this moment, I do still plan on continuing on with this series. They are kind of a set of standalones in that they follow one of the same characters throughout the whole thing, but in different circumstances. So I'm not exactly in any hurry. I don't know if I'll continue this year at all, but if I do pick up Freida McFadden again this year, I'll probably just continue on with this series because that seems to make the most sense. At the beginning of this year, I read the first book in the Monk and Robot duology by Becky Chambers, which is A Psalm for the Wild Built. This is just a little two-part novella duology, and I really need to hurry up and read the second book in this series because it is so short. It's kind of best read back to back because they essentially run straight into each other. But this one is following following a monk who works in the city, and this is set somewhere in the future after we've had the rise and the fall of the age of robots. So robots kind of faded off into the background of the world and they want to be left alone by humans, and nature has reclaimed the earth. There are areas of the world that are just overrun with nature, and then the humans tend to gather in cities. And our main character Dex is tired of the city. They want to go and hear cricket sound. They realize that it's the sound that you don't really hear in the wild anymore. It's only something you can hear pre-recorded. So they take themselves off on a mission into the wilderness to find the cricket sound. And along the way, they meet a robot who is coming kind of out of retirement just to check in on humanity to make sure that they're okay, because the robots feel bad having abandoned the humans and left them without the assistance of robots. So they just want to check in with humans and make sure everyone's okay so they can go back to minding their own business. And they stumble across Dex and they ask Dex to take them to these human communities so that they can ask their questions. But Dex is on a mission to find the cricket sound, so the robot accompanies Dex on their mission in exchange for Dex then accompanying the robot to the human civilizations. The thing that I really love about Becky Chambers is that her books really dive into societal issues in such an unassuming way. The civilizations and communities that Becky Chambers creates within her books are so similar to our own, but just slightly different, offering humans a freedom that they perhaps do not have in today's current society, which really makes me think about how life could be so much easier for so many more people if certain unnecessary restrictions just weren't a thing. That is true of all of Becky Chambers' books, and I also think it's the same for Monk and Robot. Becky Chambers is also one of my favorite authors at this point, so I'll read anything that she writes, and she actually has another new release coming out this year, and the sequel to this is actually currently the only Becky Chambers book that I haven't read, so I will definitely get to this one at some point. I might even reread this one because it's only 140 pages. I just find novellas so expensive for what they are. I mean, this one is a US copy at $20 for a novella, and I mean, I think I looked at buying the sequel in the matching edition. It's like £14, which I will get around to buying it because it's Becky Chambers and I want to own all of her books, but it is why I drag my feet a little bit on novellas, and why I haven't read things like the Murderbot series either, because the amount that you pay for the amount that you get seems kind of like out of balance compared to like a full-length novel. I also made progress in the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy, but I actually don't expect to make any more progress in this one this year. This one is a 5-book contemporary college sports romance series, with each book following a different member of the hockey team and their love interest. The 5th book I think is different. The 5th book I think is The Legacy, and I don't know if that's kind of an ensemble novel transitioning into one of the spin-off series from this one, but I know that there are at least 4 core installments following different players, and I just have one more to go because I read books 1 and 2 last year, and I very recently read book 3, which is The Score. Now, these books have also just been taken off Kindle Unlimited with the success of the show, which is why I don't know when I'm going to continue on with this one. I only own the deal in physical copy because I've had it for a long time, and it's signed and personalized to me. I met Elle Kennedy at Rare, but I'm hoping that at some point in the future they'll end up back on KU so I can carry on, because I do enjoy these, but they are very much like an easy palette cleansing kind of read to me, so I don't really want to own them physically if I don't have to. My favorite book in this series is still The Deal. The Mistake, which is book 2, is my least favorite, and The Score, which is the one that I read this year, I did really enjoy, but I think I just read The Deal at the perfect time where I really enjoyed it, so this is probably going to remain my favorite in the series. But when I need a little bit of a palette cleanser and these books are available to me, I'm also really happy to continue. By the time you watch this video, I will have finished the Bloodsworn Saga by John Gwynne. This one is a very difficult one to describe because you don't actually know the main common thread between all of the perspectives until the end of the first book, but something that all of the perspectives that we follow do have in common from early on is that they are all looking for missing children. This is set in a world that has a lot of political upheaval because we have a bunch of Jarldoms that are having to make the decision of whether they're going to band together and rally under a queen to protect themselves from Jarldom earldoms with more power, so when they inevitably attack, they can like fight them off. But in the history of this world, there was also an epic war between the gods where they essentially all killed each other. And there's apparently this fabled land, which is the graveyard of the gods, and the bones of the gods are actually very valuable in this world. So we have people who are kind of going out to hunt them. And amidst all of this, we have the mystery of missing children. So as I said, each of our perspectives is pursuing a different missing child that is connected to them in some way or connected to their plot line in some way. And inevitably, all of these things kind of come together as all of our perspectives converge on each other. This series also deals a lot with the hubris of humanity and how far humans will go for their own personal gain, even when they're meddling in things that they shouldn't be meddling with. I have really enjoyed this one. It's not my favorite John Gwynne series. I'm still a big fan of The Faithful and the Fallen because I enjoy the slow build in that, but I have really enjoyed exploring this world, which is a little bit faster paced than The Faithful and the Fallen is. And as somebody who's not a fan of Norse mythology, I really enjoyed the element of this one, and that element of the gods is probably my favorite part of this series. So the further we get into this one and the more that magical element kind of builds, the more I've been enjoying it. And at the midpoint of the year, I just have the one book to read, which is The Fury of the Gods. But as I mentioned at the time that you're watching this, I will have already read it because this is our current book club series, which is very soon drawing to an end. Keep your eyes peeled for an announcement for the next one. It won't be just yet, but it is coming. So yeah, this one will be done and dusted. I just couldn't get it in before the end of June. Speaking of epic fantasy, I also started the Rhaenyra Revelations by Michael J. Sullivan. I don't think I'm going to get this series finished this year, but I may make progress because the installments in this one are pretty short. This is actually a bind up of the first two books, and I only read half of it. So I've read the first full book in this series, which is called The Crown Conspiracy, and I really enjoyed it. This series follows a mercenary and a thief duo that go by Rhaenyra, and they are made up of Royce and Hadrian. So Hadrian is the good-natured master swordsman, and Royce is the distrustful, pessimistic thief. So these two bounce off each other a lot because they have very opposing personalities, and it's essentially a Labrador and a black cat pairing with a lot of humor in the dialogue, mainly generated by their rapport. The first book in this series also has a little bit of a self-contained plot where Royce and Hadrian are framed for the murder of the king, which sets them off on this path of chaotic events. And throughout this, we learn a little bit of information about the world, about the history, about some of the magic, both past and present, that hint at what is to come in the overarching plot of this series, or at least I hope. At this point, just one book in, I don't know whether each installment is going to be its own self-contained story with some other stuff going on in the background, or whether we're ever going to focus on that other stuff a little bit more. But I'm really excited to find out because I had such a good time with it. It read so quickly, but also didn't feel like it was just 300 pages. And I think that Michael J. Sullivan has done a really good job of drawing you in really quickly with these compelling, lovable characters and like an action adventure plot line, while also laying the groundwork for more to come in the future. The next three that I have to talk about are kind of straddling both sections of this video because at this moment they are unfinished, but by the end of the year, the final installment in this series will be published. The first one of those is the Sorrow Song University duology by Autumn Woods, with the first book being Nightshade. This one is a contemporary dark academia romance with some mafia elements, following a girl who has been offered a scholarship to the elite boarding school that her parents worked at. She accepts the invitation because she would like to find out some more information about her parents' death and get revenge on the man responsible, but what she doesn't expect upon attending this university is to become close to that man's son. I had a couple of issues with this. There was a couple of inconsistencies that I feel should have been picked up in editing, and the end of the book had a couple of the characters acting a little bit inconsistently in order to generate enough of a plot line for us to go into a second book and have a follow-up to this book. But aside from that, I found this one to be really compelling, and I was kind of invested in the romance. So when the sequel is was released at the end of July, I plan on taking myself down to the works to see if I can pick up a matching copy. I believe that the final book in the Eating Woods trilogy is going to be indie published in October and then traditionally published by, I'm assuming, Evermore a little bit later down the line as well. This one is a gothic romantasy series. I have only read the first book so far. I'm super eager to continue on with this one though, because I really enjoyed book one. It is a difficult one to describe because it has such a slow build into the story, and 200 pages in, like, the two characters that we follow's paths still haven't intersected, which is a little unusual with this being a romance. But essentially our main character Mavis lives in the human realms, where she has constantly been suspected for witchcraft. This whole human dimension does have a witch trial kind of vibe about it. It's given that era and that kind of community, and anybody who sins or is suspected of witchcraft in this world are fed to the Eating Woods, where a beast consumes them. Our male main character is an immortal who lives in the immortal lands, and he is searching for the bloodline of 7 different species within his realm to be able to stop a plague but also break a curse that is not only afflicting him but is afflicting his brother, so that he can hopefully save them both. I really enjoyed the atmosphere in this one and the romance. It took me a while to get into in terms of the fantastical elements, but the more I got into this one, the more that I really enjoyed it. So if I could read book 2 between now and October and then read that on release, that would be amazing. I am quite surprised about this one, but I believe that the sequel to Starside by Alex Aster is being released later this year, which is wild because the release for this one was only March, and it is like a traditionally published fantasy duology. The great news though is that that will then wrap this series up, and I'm currently in a perfect position to be able to go straight into that sequel. This one was a book that I went into with quite low expectations, and I think that's actually why I ended up enjoying it so much. But it is essentially set in a world that is split between the realm of Starside, which is where the gods live, it's a world full of magic, and also Stormside, where the mortals live. Every 25 years the gate between the two opens, and 50 mortals may pass from Stormside to Starside to journey to the source of magic, where they will then have the opportunity to fill a cup and bring it back to the mortal lands. Our main character is planning on being one of those 50 this year, but not to bring magic back to the mortal lands. She actually would like to get her revenge on the gods that are responsible for the death of her family. This one was chock full of really popular like tropes, plot devices, themes, and it's also very indulgent because we have quite an expansive fantasy map in here, and we hit every single point on this map, even when it was a little unnecessary. I feel like Alex Aster really enjoyed just journeying through this world and detailing the exploration to us. It did get a little bit repetitive in that regard, but overall I thought that the beginning was instantly compelling, which is surprising to me because of how fast-paced it is from the start. And I also really loved the ending. As this is a duology, and like I said, I'm in a perfect position to read a sequel, I am interested in continuing on with this one, and hopefully the conclusion is as dynamic as this first installment. Next up for the series that are still publishing, I will start off with the one that I'm currently up to date on, like the last 3 we've covered, but there will be 2 more installments published in this series in 2025. The first at the beginning of July and the second one at some point in October, and that is the Starlight Grove series by Catherine Cowles, which is a romantic suspense series. This one was my first foray into romantic suspense, which is a genre that I assume that I would enjoy because I do like to have something else going on alongside my contemporary romance plot lines a lot of the time. And this is following a woman who moves to this small town where her friend went missing a year prior. So the case has gone cold and nobody's really looking into it anymore, but she has a feeling that her friend is still out there. So she moves to this town to investigate herself, and she very quickly runs into Dex Archer, who has just returned home after working for the FBI as a hacker, and himself and his brothers go out of their way to lend their specialist skills to cases that have gone cold to help the family members and the people that love them that are left behind, because they feel like they have a lot to atone for because their father was actually a serial killer. So of course Dex and Brayden end up teaming up to try and get to the bottom of what happened to Brayden's best friend Nova, and they obviously grow closer along the way. I went into this expecting the romance to be at the forefront and the suspense element to just be something that adds an extra dimension to the romance. So I was surprised at how invested I became in the suspense, like the mystery plot line in here. And while it's not the most intricate mystery that I've ever read, I thought that the combination of the two were really well executed. I really liked the romantic relationship we have in here as well. And I'm very excited for especially the second book in this series, Into the Fading Twilight, because it follows one of the brothers that I'm the most interested in, because all of the installments in this series are going to be following one of Dexter's brothers. I think there's 5 in total. Or 4. I'm here for it anyway. I have also made a little bit of progress in Dungeon Crawler Carl this year, which if you guys don't know what Dungeon Crawler Carl is, it is a lit RPG series following a man called Carl who goes out of his house in a winter storm to bring his cat back inside because she jumped out the window. He is unprepared for the winter storm. He's wearing a leather jacket, underwear, and pink Crocs that don't fit him and belong to his now ex-girlfriend. And when he is out in the snow, all of the buildings on Earth collapse into the ground, and this voice comes out of nowhere telling him that he can either survive on planet Earth with all of the resources that are left, or he can enter into one of these stairwells going underground that have now just opened and become a player in an intergalactic game show. So he, obviously ill-equipped for this storm, grabs his cat and heads down into this dungeon where he becomes a dungeon crawler, and he has to fight for his life amongst all of the other humans that have traveled down into the dungeon for the same person. Immediately, as soon as his cat enters, she very quickly levels up and becomes a player in her own right and provides most of the joy in this series for me, if I'm being honest. This series also has amazing audiobooks, which is the way that I'm choosing to consume them, because I love me a full cast, like, performative audiobook. It essentially has production value of like a graphic audio, but it's pretty much just one guy doing all of the work. I'm currently 4 books deep into this series, so 3 of the books I read in 2025. This year I read book 4. I took a little bit of a break. I don't think I've picked up one of these books since either February or March, but I have started book 5, which is The Butcher's Masquerade. So I'm on chapter 10, but I still have a long way to go. This series hasn't completely won me over in the way that it's won a lot of people over. It's not a 5-star series for me, but I do find it to be enjoyable, and the audiobooks I think add a lot of value for me, so I will be continuing on with this one. The 8th book I'm pretty sure has just been released. I'm not sure how many books in total it's going to be. I thought book 8 was going to be the last, but I've heard around that there are more books intended. It would make sense if there were 15, but that's a lot, so I don't know if we're going that far. I also have the Ricarda series by Jackson Ford. I've put this in the still publishing section because I assume that it is, but honestly, I have no idea how long this series is going to be, and as of yet, I've just read the first installment. The sequel was released a couple of months ago, and I have picked it up. I just haven't gotten around to it yet, but this one is an epic fantasy series. I'm not sure how epic the plot line is at this point, but it is marketed as epic fantasy, so we'll go with it. It's definitely adult fantasy, if nothing else, following a group of raiders in this vast land called the Tapestry, and a Khan is building a city in this land to protect himself from more powerful like kingdoms and forces around him. He's consolidating all of his power into the city, so he's inviting, threatening, forcing all of the communities of the Tapestry into his city, which is making it really hard for raiders because they have no communities to raid, and he's also disrupting the hunting grounds of the wildlife of this area. So these giant fire-breathing lizards are coming down from the mountains looking for food, and the Ricarda, the raiding band that we follow, decide to tame the fire-breathing lizards to use in their defense against the Khan, because they know eventually they're going to run into one of his bands that is too big for them to defeat, and so they need a little insurance policy or something that is going to keep the Khan at arm's length. I really enjoyed book 1. I read this for the Fairy Epic Fantasy vlog that I did, where I read their first year of their Epic Fantasy subscription, and this is the book that I thought that I would enjoy the least because I assumed that it would be a little humorous and I was worried it would be a little silly goofy, but I find that Jackson Ford balances the humorous dialogue really well with some some more serious topics, which is what I'm coming to realize I actually really like when it comes to humorous fantasy. And so this one I felt grew on me the more I got into it, and I'm really excited to get into book 2, especially because I've heard that it has some pretty like brutal things in it, and you know me, I love pain. And then the last series we're going to be talking about is The Bound and the Broken by Ryan Cahill. So this is a series that has been indie published and it's being republished traditionally by The Broken Binding. Can we take a moment for the Broken Binding edition as well? This is not only gorgeous, but such nice quality. It is such a well-produced book. I love it. But in terms of this being a series that is still publishing, both the indie publishing schedule and also the traditional publishing schedule of this series are still ongoing. In terms of traditional publishing, the first book and first novella has been released, and for the indies, I'm pretty sure there's just one book left. This one is a 5-book series. Yes, there are 4 novels and 3 novellas out so far. I'm pretty sure that the 4th novella is either coming very soon or has just been released, and I think that there's one more core installment coming in this series. I have currently read this first book and also the first novella, and while the first book I thought had potential and was promising, I gave the first novella 5 stars, which is wild for me because novellas are not typically my thing. I normally prefer something more substantial, but this is an epic fantasy series that reads a lot like classic fantasy. It has a lot of elements of Wheel of Time. I've heard it compared to Eragon, although I can't confirm because I haven't read Eragon. There are a lot of elements of John Gwyn's Faithful and the Fallen in here. So this one is following a young man as he is about to go into the trial that transitions him from a boy to a man in the eyes of his society. And during this time, 3 visitors come to his village, and he, along with a couple of his friends, ends up wrapped up with the scraps of a rebellion trying to overthrow the oppressive empire that is currently ruling this world. And these rebels are actually the fractured remains of the Order, who were the ruling party 400 years ago before they were overthrown by the empire. This series also has dragons, it has magic, it has all of your classic D&D races like dwarves and elves and giants. And the first book I thought was a good introduction, but there was nothing in it that really grabbed me. Novella, amazing. So I'm really excited to get back into this series with the second book. I really don't want to get to a point with this series where I feel like I have to reread in order to continue. So I'd love to read book 2 sooner rather than later. So these are all of the series that I have started in the first half of this year or are currently in the middle of, along with, of course, Dungeon Crawler Carl and The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. Down in the comments, let me know which of these series you would like me to prioritize. I'm really stuck at the minute because aside from The Housemaid and Off Campus, I'm so eager to dive into all of these. I mean, the Bloodsworn Saga, not an issue, already going to be finished by the time you see this video, but the rest of them, I want to continue on with them all, and there's just not enough time for all of these books. So let me know which ones you guys would rather I prioritize. Aside from that, guys, let me know what series you have started or are in the middle of this year that you would love to finish before the end of the year. And if you feel like great. And if you'd like to let me know that you were here, but you don't feel like you have anything to say, leave me a bird emoji for Across the Vanishing Sky by Catherine Cowles. But aside from that, I'm going to go and pick up all of my books off the floor. So please don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, my Instagram, or my Patreon if you want to follow me on any of those. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you will go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.